Hello, everybody, and good morning. We are here today to discuss a very important topic, and I would like to welcome you to this webinar of the title From Inclusive Social Protection Policy to Implementation, Insights from Mozambique, Vietnam, and Zambia. As a way of a background, let me just say that in 2016, the International Labour Organization and Irish Aid launched a partnership to support Zambia, Malawi, Mozambique, Vietnam, and Tanzania in areas of inclusive growth, social protection, and jobs. The more recent 2023 to 2025 Irish Aid / ILO partnership program focuses on expanding social protection systems in these countries. This webinar, therefore, the series will facilitate dialogue and knowledge exchange, concentrating on national and local implementation of global social protection policies, enhancing research and capacity building, and promote inclusive social protection. Today's session in particular will focus on taking stock of the ongoing efforts done by different stakeholders to promote enhancing the gender responsiveness and disability inclusion of social protection and demonstrating examples of how these policies promote inclusions for persons with disabilities, for persons with disabilities and tackle critical issues, as well as identifying further work to be done on research, capacity building, and technical assistance. I'm going to be your moderator. My name is Felix Mwenge. I'm a technical officer at the International Labour Organization based in Lusaka. Quickly, just to go over the essentials of this session. This session is being recorded, so the recording can be sent to all registrants after the session. We have Zoom AI generated automatic captions. To see it, you should click in the CC closed captions on your screen button. You are also encouraged to use the chat box to present yourself, introduce yourself, and make comments or share any useful links of materials that you know. You can share your questions with the speakers through the Q&A box. Please state your name and organization, and if your question is directed to a specific speaker. There's simultaneous interpretation in French, Portuguese, and Vietnamese. In your Zoom controls, click in the button Interpretation and select the language that you would like to hear. Also note that we have sign language interpretation from an international perspective. Quickly, let me go through the schedule, the agenda. So after this introduction, we are going to have a 10 minutes presentation. I'll introduce the speaker shortly. After that, we have 3 presentations to be made, one from Mozambique, another from Vietnam, and another from Zambia. I'll introduce the speakers again. Then we'll have a question and answer session for about 40 minutes, after which we will close. Thank you so much. Let me introduce quickly the speakers. So we have Finn, who is the Social Protection Project Manager at International Labour Organization in Zambia. We have Mr. Sérgio Falange, who is the Executive Director, Platform of the Mozambican Civil Society for Social Protection. We also have Ms. Phuong, who is Deputy Director General of Policy and Legal Department, Vietnam Women's Union, VWU. Lastly, not least, we have Mr. Mwiya, who is the National Project Officer and Disability Officer at the International Labour Organization here in Lusaka. Thank you for joining. Make sure to answer our survey available at the end. I'll now invite Finn to make the first presentation. Finn, over to you.
Thank you, Felix. Maybe we can have the slides put up. So, welcome to the webinar. This is going to be a relatively short interventions from me, which I will cover basics of the overview of the inclusive interventions under the current Irish Aid IO partnership. I would like to leave a lot of the time to showcase some of the work that's been done in the country. But in this 5-10 minutes presentation, what I would like to do is to give you an overview of what the Irish Aid project is supporting and how the importance of considering inclusivity in social protection policy. And I will leave the details of transforming some of this inclusive social protection policy actions to implementation to my country colleagues who will be sharing their experience. So next slides, please. So the Irish Aid project, I think the objective of the partnership, the first outcome is to really look at social protection coverage to extend and enhance with the aim of making it more inclusive. The second outcome of the project is to look at the governance of the social protection system to improve its strength and strengthen its administrative, operational, and financial capacity. I think this is an important action that we want to take because this helps to guarantee the sustainability of the social protection system and ensure that services that has been put into policies can be implemented. The third outcome, which is an important one and something that we want to are focusing on today, is an inclusive culture of social protection is promoted, ensuring that the capacity of leaders, practitioners is strengthened, and that vulnerable groups are informed about their social protection rights and services. Next slide. So why focus on inclusion? Well, the Leave No One Behind is the central transformative promise of the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development. It represents the unequivocal commitment of all UN member states to eradicate poverty in all its forms, end discrimination and exclusion, and reduce the inequality and vulnerabilities that leave people behind and undermine the potential of individuals and of humanity as a whole. LNOB compels us to focus on discrimination and inequalities that undermines the agency of people as holders of rights. Limited coverage, fragmentation, inadequacy of benefits continue to characterize many social protection systems in the developing regions, and with minority groups such as women, children, the elderly, persons with disabilities, more likely to face exclusion from social protection program. Furthermore, poverty and vulnerability in the Malawi, Mozambique, Vietnam, Zambia has escalated since the COVID-19 pandemic and subsequent shocks in the region induced by climate change and internal and external conflict. These gaps must be closed if we are to realize the rights of those left behind. Thus, the Irish Aid IOO partnership, through its regional social protection strategy for Africa, the Global Coalition for Social Justice campaigns, and the global flagship program on building social protection floor for all to address issues of inclusion and to make true all UN member states' promise of eradicating poverty in all forms by leaving no one behind. So how do we leave no one behind? What is an inclusive policy? Next slide, please. So we can think about inclusive policy from supporting the rights of persons with disability. Throughout today's webinar, you will hear from our country colleagues some of the things they have been doing to support the rights of persons with disability. These range from capacity building at national and subnational level to support policy making and implementation of inclusive social protection. There are also examples where the project supported the stakeholders to develop research products, knowledge, including surveys on access to social protection for persons with disability and ethnic minority to support reform actions. This is some examples of this will be covered. For example, in the case of a comprehensive situation analysis of social protection that was done for persons with disability in Vietnam. Next slide. We can also think of supporting the rights of older person and supporting gender equality as improving inclusiveness of social protection. This comes in the form of advocating and supporting policy making that support livelihood and income security for older persons, developments of manuals, capacity building at subnational level to support implementation of age-inclusive social protection programs, and supporting gender mainstreaming through developments of gender-sensitive guidelines and training manuals. Last but not least, next slide, please. Last but not least, inclusive social protection policy is also supporting the poor and vulnerable, including workers in the informal economy. In the countries that we are speaking about, both in Vietnam, Zambia, Malawi, and Mozambique, there are a huge group of workers who are working the informal economy and sizable population of the working poor. Supporting research, advocacy, and dialogue to build the case for extending social protection to the workers, the poor, and the vulnerable of society is one of the most concrete way to support the extension and the building of inclusive social protection policy. This will help to support the inclusion of these poor and vulnerables into many of these national social protection schemes, which are sometimes not catered to the needs of the workers in the informal economy or the working poor. Examples of this can also include expansion of health service coverage to the poor and vulnerable through national health insurance schemes. So without further ado, I would leave some of the concrete examples to my colleagues in the countries, and they will share with you, and I'll pass the floor back to Felix, who will moderate the discussion. Thank you.
Finn, thank you so much for such a short but excellent overview of the Irish Aid and ILO partnership. I think you touch on very key issues, and also good to see those beautiful pictures depicting moments of inclusion for different projects. So without diluting what is already excellent, we are now going to move to country-specific presentations, which will narrow into some of the clear examples of inclusion activities under this project. And to begin with, I'm going to invite Ms. Phuong, who's like I introduced, who's the Director General for the Vietnamese Women's Union. Ms. Phuong, you may take the floor. Over to you.
Thank you. Let me just share my screen. Okay.
Thank you. We can see the screen clearly. Please go ahead.
Thank you for inviting me to share insights on social protection of Vietnam through gender perspective. A brief, I'm from Vietnam Women's Union, a mass organization with a total membership of above 19 million women out of Vietnam. We perform the function of representing Vietnamese women and mobilizing gender equality. So, in order to carry out our duty, we have collaboration with many organizations and brands. And under this presentation, I will focus on the collaboration between Women's Union and ILO. Overall, Vietnam has a relatively well-developed social protection system, including a social assistance system and a social insurance system that covers a wide range of communities. And many meet international convention requirements, as you can see in the table in the screen. Just briefly, the coverage of social security in Vietnam. The country has made strong progress toward achieving universal health coverage, with social health insurance covering around 94% of the population, with comprehensive benefit package. We also has a robust social insurance system covering around more than 42% of the working age population. A social assistance system designed for most vulnerable groups, covering 3.5% population. And unemployment insurance scheme brings effective support for employers and workers during ups and downs of the labor market. As of 2024, this coverage accounts for more than 34% of workforce. And Vietnam also has made progress in extending coverage of the pension system. Around 35% of the population over the retirement age estimated to receive social or merit benefit.
Miss Phuong,
However,
Miss Phuong, can you hear?
However, there is still a substantial gender gaps in social protection. First, the coverage gap. In Vietnam, women have access to the social insurance system early in their career, only to drop later. They leave social insurance system by lump sum withdrawing with high rate due to many reasons, especially the care responsibility. It is particularly concerning that the majority of lump sum are withdrawn by young women. This might indicate that the particular need is not sufficiently covered by other short-term benefits like maternity and unemployment insurance. The second is the difference in pension coverage paid by social insurance. Despite higher coverage rate, only 16% of women aged 65 plus receive social insurance pension.
Miss Phuong, can you hear me? Hello, Miss Phuong.
At older age, the gap is even wider. Yes.
We seem to have a bit of a challenge with your connectivity.
Okay, so
yeah, the voice is breaking, so participants can't follow the coverage.
Hear me?
What we can do is, can you pause for a few minutes? We work on your connection, and I allow another presenter to make the presentation. Is that fine?
Yes, sure.
Okay, so we will pick up from this slide. So we will pick up from slide 4. Let's work on your audio, and then we can come back to you. Is that fine?
Okay. Yes.
Thank you. So we will go to Mwiya, our disability officer in Lusaka, ILO, while we ensure that Ms. Phuong's connection improves. Muya, you may come through, share your presentation, and let us know what is happening in Zambia. Over to you.
Just enable me to share my screen. Oh, thank you. Okay, let me just get a confirmation that colleagues were able to hear me well. Felix, our moderator, are you able to hear me, and are you able to see my screen shared?
Loud and clear, Muya, and I can see your presentation. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Just to start to say, well, one of the very examples we have is from Zambia. And this is on disability management information system, and of course, the certification of persons with disabilities in Zambia, and what is our experience. Outrightly, I want to make mention that this works has been supported with the help of the Irish Aid government, and also the government of Ireland through the Irish Aid, and also partners of the UNJP, United Nations Joint Program, on phase 3, which is the UK government and the Swedish. So I'm going to run through the country profile on disability data and statistics and a bit of law. Also our intervention as ILO, then the challenges for implementing the disability certification in Zambia, what advantages have we seen, what are some of the next steps, and we should be able to conclude within the next 8 minutes. So if you look at Zambia, generally, we've had very comprehensive data, which has been available from 1980. But the main challenge has been on disability prevalence in Zambia. For instance, what we saw in 1980, it showed that from the national population, 1.6 persons with disabilities had a disability. 10 years later, it drops to less than 1%. Another 10 years later, we see 2.7% increasing. And in 2010, we see that statistics coming in at about 2%. So really the definitions and data collecting methods, not just in Zambia, but across different countries, we can see that there's been some challenges, and Zambia hasn't been spared. Now, if you are going to look at a much more detailed analysis, we held the National Disability Survey in 2015, and also in 2006. It showed a higher prevalence. I've just stopped a bit to attend to one technical issue.
Muya, you may also put your presentation mode for broader view.
Which I've done from my screen.
Okay, good.
From my screen.
Because you're not showing the presentation mode. Stop sharing. Just stop sharing. Right? Could you
okay, let's just pause a minute as we fix a small technical issue. Okay. We'll continue running shortly.
Could you go to the Zoom? Okay. All right. You share screen. Where's your share screen? There. And that screen. Okay. Maybe you can share.
Muya, another way we can do this is
I'm having the technical guidance.
Okay.
Yeah, I think, are you able to confirm if it's there?
Not just yet.
Is it?
Okay. Yes, it is
Okay.
clearer now and
Okay.
in presentation mode. Please continue.
Okay, thank you. So really, from 1980, we saw that Zambia's definitions on disability and also the data collecting tools had an impact in terms of our national disability prevalence, which is clear in most of these countries across the world. But a more detailed SINTEF survey, can you imagine, of 2006, because it was dedicated and it had different definitions on disability, the prevalence shot to 13.4%. And when the Zambia national government, the National Statistics Office in 2015 did the dedicated survey, we saw 7.7% as a prevalence. So this really shows that it underscores the importance of understanding the methodologies and definitions used in each or country context when interpreting disability preference, especially what we saw in Zambia. So what did ILO do? So the intervention of ILO within the social protection unit is we worked on digitalizing the process and also ensuring that we roll out the disability assessment and certification. We can comfortably say, as we speak now, from about 5,000 to almost 200,000 persons' abilities in the system. We also supported the procurement of computer hardware and cameras to ensure that the process is supported with the latest equipment compared to what was done in the past. We've also developed an offline application to support continuous registration of persons' abilities, particularly in areas where there is poor internet connectivities or in rural areas. We've also supported intensified mobile disability assessment and certification out of 5 provincial centers. The country has about 10. Then we've come up with a multidisciplinary team to go out, the Agency for Persons with Disabilities, the Ministry of Community Development and Social Services, also the Zambia National News Information Services, Ministry of Health, Education, and Organization of Persons with Disabilities. We further made sure that the system was audited to ensure standard language and terminologies are used in the database. What are some of the challenges you are going to see around social protection, particularly disability certification in most countries? We can define one of them as legal challenges. You must have a very clear undercutting from the law. And in Zambia, that has actually had an impact in terms of the manner and shape that disability certification does. So we had the Persons with Disabilities Act number 6 of 2012. Previously, we had Zambia Council for the Handicapped, which was established in 1968, which primarily focused on sheltered employment in the 17 farm centers. And then we went to about 2012, when the law now had to be revised to reflect now the new international standards around the United Nations Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities. Remember, previously, as I said, it was sheltered employment where persons with disabilities were put in certain spaces, accommodated given employment. But now, because of the changes from 2006 on the international legal framework, there was a very instrumental convention which supported revision of our national disability laws. In that, it recognized coming up with a disability management information system that was going to be quite robust and be able to provide real-time data on disability prevalence in the country, particularly as the administrative data is being collected. So we also saw definition challenges. In many countries, you are going to see disability is defined very differently. In Zambia, until 2012, it was purely on medical grounds, which is really the absence of a body structure or where a person is not able or inability to do something, purely medical. But when in 2012, when the new law was passed, we saw a different definition of the disability, which included the social aspect, and basically what we say that disability therefore now becomes an interaction of a person with impairments and also the barriers in community. So for Zambia, in education, they will define disability in a different way. The health services, their focus will be differently, and in the social welfare. So to bring these definitions into one was a bit of a challenge. Then operational challenges, like I did make mention, 1968, mainly sheltered employment in the farm centers across the country. But also we are seeing the MIS system that is developed for disability under the Zambia Agents for Persons with Disabilities is not speaking to the MIS on education, it's not speaking to the MIS on health, and also this piece, which is the MIS on social protection in Zambia. So with that, the intervention, the picture that you have on your far left is what used to be a disability card. This was paper-based, and you can clearly see if a person forgets it in their laundry clothes, they would wash it, it will become disfigured. So the ILO intervention of the Social Protection Unit is we contracted the local university, the University of Zambia, to have a Zambian locally generated system that we're going to be able to support disability certification. And you have a lady on your far right who is representing the transformation of the MIS system through time. Paper-based to the digital platform. So there was a lot of paper that used to be collected. You go in the field, in the rural area, you assess data, you come back to the offices, you have to re-enter that data in the system. We can safely say that is no more. Duplication of work, sometimes these papers will get lost. We are fully digital, where officers from the registration are able to go into the various platforms, the various communities, the various schools, the various places in the country using the digital platform, and they'll be able to input that in the MIS without the use of paper. What have we seen are the advantages and benefits of disability certification? Zambia, really from about 2014, we've seen a very, very interesting landscape change in terms of the policy and legal framework to support disability, to support social protection in the country. One of those that we've seen is the National Social Protection Policy. We had the National Disability Policy, the National Aging Policy, and also the Workers' Compensation Fund, which has been in existence for some time. We also saw the Citizens Economic Empowerment Commission and also the Electoral Commission of Zambia. All these had a huge interest in targeting disability as one of the target groups. So it required, therefore, to have a fraud-proof system for one to be able to enjoy the benefits that have been enlisted in the law. And the need now to have a very robust disability MI system was really born. So we, like I made mention, the ILO gave the University of Zambia. At first, the MIS was just localized on desktops, and if the desktops were stolen, you lose data. We had to make sure that now in 2020, we centralized the system. It went web-based, and from a central point, you are able to see in real time who is registering people where, in which part of the country, whether rural or urban. You have real-time data centrally. You are able to be able to see the movement in terms of the data for persons with disabilities. And you can also give, even on the causes, who is the age groups, the population dynamics from the MI system that we have. Then we want to strengthen the coordination. If the health system, people within the health structure and the education, including the community, the formal and the informal economy, if we can have a robust system that speaks to the MIS on disability, we should be able to see numbers increasing very rapidly. So in our disability assessment and registration, we believe in the participation of persons with disabilities themselves. And you can see we have a young lady who is supporting us collecting data. She's a woman with a physical disabilities in Muchinga province of Zambia. What are the advantages? The advantages we've seen is, as a country, if we're going to have a digitalized MI system on disability, you have convenience and accessibility. Anywhere you can access this, whether you're within your office or you're using a tablet or your mobile phone, provided you are going to meet our fourth point, which is security and accountability. Only those who are allowed to have authorized access to the system will be able to tell the entry. And also you are able to generate different types of reports: disability type, date of birth, the locations, and other aspects. So for Zambia, the benefits really for having the disability cards, like in many countries, we have tax-based incentives to employers. Employers employing persons with disabilities, they are receiving benefits, but they have to demonstrate that the person they've employed is an actual person with disabilities. Also, we also have access to the public rail system, which gives quite so many incentives. And very hotly is the recruitment of public service workers in the Teaching Service Commission. Next step is we want to make sure that this is rolled out completely to ensure that the health and education are brought into speed, and also interoperability of the MI system with other MI systems within the social protection space, and sourcing for more equipment. Well, disability assessment for any country, if you are to have it, you must make sure really you have the legal framework that is well defined, and the development of the MI system usually sits well if it's done within the local university. You have also to provide continuous support, particularly how do you generate data, because disability occurs every day. And then the process really could be quite expensive, and you must have a good plan to ensure that disability cards really that are being issued out, people have benefits tied to them. This so doing will create a demand for registration. That was the Zambian experience in terms of moving from paper-based to the digital system. I want to hand over now back to our moderator. Thank you very much.
Muya, thank you so much for such an excellent presentation. You've done a good job, and it's exciting to see Zambia, addressing inclusion concerns of persons with disability, combining legal reforms, and taking advantage of digital innovations. This is excellent. And just to remind the listeners that the Q&A is there for you to post the questions. We'll come back to them. If you have any questions for Muya, we'll come back and he will address all of them. Let's now go back to Ms. Phuong, and we are picking it up from slide 3. Ms. Phuong, you take the floor. Ms. Phuong is sharing a presentation, and it will be up in a minute.
Yes. Yes. Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, loud and clear, and better this time.
Okay, okay.
Please
Sorry.
proceed. Sure.
Yeah. Can you please help me to show my presentation, because I have to change.
Yes, so what you can do is you can speak. When you finish, you tell us to move to the next presentation.
Okay.
We'll do it that way, yes.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. I'm so sorry for that interrupt.
No,
I don't know.
it's okay. Please proceed.
I was talking about the gender gap in social protection in Vietnam. So the first one is the coverage. The first one is the coverage gap that I mentioned, because the women, have access to the social insurance system early, but they drop out later very soon, because they withdraw the lump sum And it is particularly concerning that a majority of lump sum are withdrawn by young women. This is concern issue. And this might indicate that a particular need is not sufficiently covered by other short-term benefits like maternity and unemployment insurance. The second is different in pension coverage by social insurance. Despite higher coverage rate, only 15 of women aged 65 plus receive social insurance pensions compared to 27% of men. And at older age, the gap is even wider. At the age of 80 plus, the gap is almost 2 times. And regarding the benefit, ILO can calculate that the average value of men's pensions was higher than that of women by almost 20%. This is due to the difference in the accumulated time of social insurance contributions. The average social insurance contribution time of female workers is 4 years less than that of men. Third, the maternity coverage gap is still significant. In 2021, only 40% of the more than 1.5 million Vietnamese women who gave birth were entitled maternity benefits. It means that there was more than 900,000 women giving birth are not entitled to maternity benefits, accounting for more than 60% of women giving birth in the year. So closing existing gender gap and addressing gender inequality in social security through promoting gender responsive policy is a key element in the process of building a comprehensive, adequate, and sustainable social security system for. Next, please. Next slide. From that one, since 2020, Vietnam Women's Union and ILO have been closely collaborating to produce evidence-based policy recommendations to improve gender equality in Vietnam's social insurance system. In this collaboration, ILO provide technical expertise in supporting Vietnam Women's Union to carry out our function. On one hand, we focus on strengthening evidence-based knowledge on gender gaps in social protection through various activities, such as developing policy brief to promote gender-responsive social protection. We organize policy advocacy events with relevant stakeholders such as government officials and members of National Assembly who play a vital role in policy making process. On the other hand, we have tried to enhance capacity of women's union staff in which we provide social knowledge, standards, and policy advocacy skills. Next, please. Such joint efforts bring key inputs to several policy reforms, particularly the new social insurance law enacted in 2024. Along with other impacts, several most important achievements of that are the expansion coverage for workers in informal sectors, expansion of maternity benefits for women in informal sector, anti-tied pension system in place, and social assistance adequacy standards based over 80% between 2021 want to attend the training. Along with that, online training or develop with access for women union staff at all levels. You can see the link of this training in the slide. So please visit that one. And the next one, last.
Hello,
slide.
Miss Phuong. Miss Phuong, can you
Yes.
hear me?
Yes, yes.
Yeah,
Yes,
we seem to be losing you momentarily. So what you can do is stay close to the mic without moving, so that we get everything you are saying, because you are going off and on. So stay very close to the mic all the time as you speak.
yes. I use mic. Yes. So can you hear clearly?
Yes, I can. So just be in the same position so that your voice projection is consistent.
Okay.
Please go ahead.
Yeah. I'm going to the last slide.
Okay, great.
Please give me the next one, the next slide.
Okay.
Yeah, so we are talking a lot of the context of changing world nowadays, and so protection plays is not changing, especially address gender-specific risks. So, so to what gender-responsive social protection system implication for women, Vietnam Women's Union are continuing works to close to gender gaps in social protection, prioritizing advocate pension, care credit to compensate unpaid care. Social protection for women workers in the informal economy, advocate for maternity benefits, especially for women with disabilities and women of ethnic minorities. We can say that when social protection policies and programs are designed and implemented through a gender lens, they can tackle the consequence and root causes of gender inequality, creating better opportunity for women and girls. Social protection system need to be more gender sensitive and responsive to address inequalities experienced by women through their life force. We realize that the policy can solve all the problems of gender equality. A nation of different policies needed. And a well-designed policy can have many multidimensional and multi-targeted impact, especially in this context. So thank you for listening.
Thank you, Ms. Phuong. I would like to sincerely thank you for the presentation. A few network challenges, but generally clear. So for our participants, we did post Ms. Phuong's contents of the presentation in the chat. So you may be able to look at that and frame your questions based on that. We'll move to the next speaker, next and last speaker, but I just want to say that I think in a presentation, she brings out the role of a women's union in advancing, inclusion not only for women but for persons with disability. Again, this speaks loudly to the work of the ILO, the tripartism, and it's important and good to see a union playing such a role, which is an excellent learning point for other regions. And also just for knowledge sharing, so the Irish Aid project currently is in Africa and includes Vietnam. So there's a south to south learning opportunities taking place. And I think these presentations provide such excellent opportunities. I'm now going to move to my last presenter, who is Mr. Sérgio Falange from Mozambique. Sir, you may take the floor.
Thank you very much. I hope you can all hear me properly. As it was said, my name is Sérgio Falange. I represent the platform of the Mozambican civil society for social protection. I would like to share here our experience regarding the role of civil society in Mozambique and the implementation of the programs of social protection that we've been on for a while now. Also, they show how relevant it is for the civil society to take part in order to implement these measures that are definitely essential to grant that the more vulnerable populations of Mozambique can access to the necessary services to have a dignified life. I would like to also emphasize that the efficacy of these programs depend on a continuous monitoring, a participatory monitoring, and overall that it can ensure that the resources are fairly divided and efficiently divided. Within this process, as I have said, the role of the civil society in this case in the monitoring process, there is a necessity from the civil society to show how relevant it is, because it plays a very important role in the implementation of public policies that acts as the mediator between the communities and the governing bodies. Above all, to ensure, to foster more transparency and clearance on the account, clarity in accounts. We also accompany the policies that are being developed. We monitor changes in order to avoid some major issues such as corruption. To achieve so, as a platform of the civil society, we have developed a program that we call Independent Community Monitoring. As a platform, we've started it since 2012, and we have shown a key actor of the different programs of social protection, and we focus on the basic social protection programs in Mozambique. But also, we have extended it to different areas such as emergency assistance during COVID times, and currently we also have extended into the support to the sanitary communities. We are working continuously to improve the implementation and quality of these programs in order to consolidate a solid basis for a better society. This community monitoring that we call MCE places the communities above all, and it combines from the individual people to the communities and institutions and the families in order to collect and implement better programs. We place the beneficiary to make active part and to clearly perceive the objectives of the program, to have a clear perception of the resources that have been received and about all the investment that the state has done for this person to leave the situation of extreme vulnerability. Within this process, the main objectives are, first one, to foster the participation of the monitoring, ease the access to information for the communities, also to train the different members of the communities, offering most above all the necessary tools for the citizens to take part in this monitoring process from the community level to the national level, but also collect evidences for advocacy. It is important to say, it's important to understand how this program is being implemented, what are the impacts of them, and understand the challenges and the gaps within the community to achieve this advocacy through the service providers, so we can influence more programs. And in order to do so, we need to collect evidence from the basis. As I have said, the MCE, thus anonymous questionnaires. We sit down with the beneficiary too, with our community monitor officer, and this officer is an individual that is part of this community already. It is well known by the community, and the beneficiaries feel more comfortable while talking and being in touch with a person they already know from the community. We are in the stage of doing anonymous queries. We analyze the payment schedules in order to identify where the beneficiaries are and where are the leaks within the program, so we can do our interviews. After the interviews, in an anonymous and individual way, we move on to the focus groups stage. In this stage, we invite the beneficiaries that have been interviewed and those who have not been interviewed, and those who are not part of the program but are part of the community. We also invite the community leaders. We invite the bosses of the neighborhoods for these focus groups in order to validate the information that has been offered in the individual inquiries, so we can see if what we have seen in the community level is actually what is being perceived by the beneficiaries and the non-beneficiaries. Afterwards, we do a selection of the 3 most frequent issues, the negative ones and also the positive ones. Some of the aspects within those focus groups are solved within the community itself. We might have some situations of individuals that are in a vulnerable situation, but that have been directed to the specific area in order to be supported and to gain access to those programs. Some issues of the social society are solved within the community, but some others are addressed into the proper group. From the focus group, we move on to the next stage. That is from the district. This is one of the main moments of advocacy and empowering. Above all, it is the moment to give our support to the key points. On the one side, we summon the community, the beneficiaries of the social community, those who were interviewed, those who were not. We bring the leaders of the communities, but on the other hand, we also call the delegates that is the district officer of the from the government and other institutions, such as the registrations and the authorities of health that are in the district level, the beneficiaries, the non-beneficiaries, can have this moment to bring up the issues themselves with their own voices, or to ask for more clear explanation of the cases. Why does, for instance, why does my neighbor get this benefit and I don't get it? But meanwhile, while we're in the same vulnerable situation. Those are some of the issues that arise from the communities. Or why a certain person receives this amount and my neighbor gets a bit more than what I am getting. That is another common issue that happens in the district stage. In this case, the officer, the delegate of the government, of the National Institute of Social Action, has the possibility to be clear about these issues. So we empower the community and the government itself to find its space to be clear about why somebody is receiving a subsidy, or which are the steps of each value of each individual to receive it. So we involve the different registries, because some beneficiaries cannot access their benefits because they don't have an ID. There are some matters in which these same beneficiaries use the value of the subsidy to get medical assistance and medicines. So this is the moment that we call the district meeting. There are also matters that cannot be solved with the delegations of these institutes in the districtal level. We take note of them, both the positive level and the negative level of them, because clearly within the program there are experiences of certain communities that can be shared with other communities in the implementation of programs. So we are always looking at those opportunities, both positive and negative points. And we start with advocacy from the basis level. We gather the information, we generate the reports and the national report. This report offers the information both at the district level up to the national level. With the information, what we can do is first-hand approach the National Institute of Social Action, that is in the capital of Mozambique, in Maputo, and we present this document and share these informations with clarity. And this is our advocacy based on evidence. This document is also shared in the financial level, shared with the members of the parliament and the political parties of the republic, but always with the idea of sharing something that is part of the program and the challenges of the program, the necessities to cover more families, the necessity to increase the amount of the subsidies, of the basic subsidies. And from then on, that is our advocacy. We also meet with the partners of social action, that is a group of organization such as the ILO that support Mozambique in those ways based on evidence, in order to continue with the advocacy to influence the decision makers in to execute programs that are actually good for our communities. This process of independent community monitoring has an agreement that we have seen in most of the programs. On the one hand, because it collects evidences for advocacy and also offers data of how the programs work, and also contributes the continuous communication, the continuous dialogue between the communities and the services. This allows the constant adapting and improvements of the program. But also there is a dialogue space that through this system we enable the resolution of problems locally, fostering adequate solutions to the necessities, the specific necessities of the communities. Through these instruments, through these informations, we can influence the public policies, the information we have collected with the work with the government, with the parliament, and among others, in order to foster the changes to improve the social protection services and expand the basic programs, among others.
It strengthens public trust, and we seek to guarantee that these programs can address in an adequate manner most vulnerable populations. Also, there's a process to increase transparency because we participate, for example, in those processes for the payment of subsidies. We provide support to that process, and then we access that data to monitor what has been actually done. And we have found different things, in particular when we verify these payments. And one of the challenges has to do with the beneficiaries. Some of them do not know how to write or read, and there are beneficiaries that do write and read. The beneficiaries sometimes sign with their fingerprint, and we question that because some of them cannot sign their payment forward. These are things that we have identified. Those making the payment before starting the process.
Sérgio,
Yes.
I'm going to ask you to conclude in the interest of time.
I was trying to speak slowly so that the interpreters could work properly. But I just wanted to explain the process, the independent monitoring process, and we provide assistance from payment days and the accompanying process. We actively participate in social service programs in Mozambique. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Sérgio. Another quite clear presentation, bringing in the role of civil society in advancing social protection inclusion. How interesting to move from the role of labor unions to civil society. Quite an excellent combination of how to drive inclusion. What we're going to do now in the remaining few minutes is to go to the Q&A and have the questions answered. The presenters have done a good job so far addressing a number of questions. So we'll just ensure that those that needs to be emphasized, we go over them. And also that there was a question posted in Portuguese. So we're going to translate that and call back Mr. Falange to provide a response. Among the questions asked is the issue of interoperability that I would love Muya to come back and speak to. You know, the extent of and the plans, future plans or current initiatives to link the DMIS, that's the Disability Management Information System, to the Ministry of Health database, to the cash transfer database. Muya, do you want to just come back and speak to that issue? Over to you.
Thank you, our moderator, Felix. Indeed, I think that's the goal, to look at interoperabilities, and it's one of the areas of technical and financial support to the government, particularly to ZAPID. Because I think if you realize, as I made mention, imagine a child with disabilities born today. Why should we wait for this child to be discharged, to go into the community, and then again invest resources to go and look for that child to put them in the system? So interoperability is going to capture things like from the health aspect, as disability is happening, whether it's congenital, somebody's born with it, or maybe as a result of a health outcome. Part of the standard procedure we are trying to see is to ensure that that is actually inputted in the system. Similarly with the education system, especially when schools open in the first term, or the beginning of the calendar year, we have new learners going to the education system at all levels of education. So that EMIS, in Zambia is called EMIS, the Education Management Information System. We are trying to see how those students with disabilities that have been, in case they were missed under health, they can be brought onto. Yeah, so I agree with you. Interoperability is key. We are trying to invest in that, and that's our next future work streams. Thank you. Over
Thank
the
you, Muya.
moderator.
Thank you, Muya. Another one for you, which is extremely interesting. You touched on tax-based incentives for employing persons with disability. Perhaps you also want to speak a little more to this issue. As you know, among the inclusion challenges of persons with disability is in the labor market for a number of issues that you know, especially as an expert. So how has disability certification in Zambia helped address this concern?
Oh, thank you. In fact, I would say that we didn't realize now there is a whole huge demand for people to have the disability certificate. A very practical example is the Teaching Service Commission, where if you have a disability certificate attached to your application, you are almost 100% guaranteed because of that quota that is being allocated to you. So employers within the private sector, there is a benefit from the income tax which they declare to the government. For every person with disabilities that they employ, there's a rebate given for that person employed. They have just to demonstrate that this is a person with disabilities and they are attached to that. So in the private sector, we have a very good example, maybe just under 30 seconds, where we saw a bottling company in an environment where it was quite a lot of noise. Persons with hearing impairment who were deaf, they were employed there, and before they realized, their quality indicators improved because they didn't need to put on the ear pads to prevent the noise pollution within that factory area. So from the private sector, we are seeing that disability certification is giving them an opportunity to identify different types of disabilities that can work within their different factory settings because of the nature of the impairment they have.
Thank you, Muya. Lastly, is this merely a case in the capital, Lusaka? Can we find these incentives being utilized in areas, you know, peri-urban areas, for instance, or it's a capital city phenomenon?
So if you've noticed, I think there is even another colleague who was asking about interpretation of these interventions in other dialects. So unfortunately, Zambia is largely rural, so in the urban setup where information seems to be penetrating well, it seems to be doing quite well. But in rural areas, we need quite a lot of investment in communication for development change because many people, there's a huge information gap. One example I can give is how now that there's a boom on employment around the Teaching Service Commission, people with the epilepsy, as an example, they're coming forward to say, I'm a person with disabilities, can I be employed? And then we are saying, look, you have to go through the functional assessment process and be able to be certified whether truly epilepsy is a disability or not. So in the rural area, the information gap is big. In the urban area, seemingly is much narrower, but we need to invest in alternative formats, not just the spoken language, not just sign language, the simpler version, and also the large print, and also the other formats such as Braille. So an investment, a call for investment for communication for development. Thank you.
Thank you, Muya. I may get back to you, but let me go to Sérgio. Sérgio, I have particularly about 2 or 3 questions for you. And the first one is, do you have a grievance mechanism system at the national level in Mozambique? And part of the question of this question also expects you to also shed light in terms of what kind of relationships does civil society have with the government to be able to do this kind of work, follow up on implementation, resource allocation. How does civil society relate with government?
Thank you, Felix. In fact, we have a system at a national level. Unfortunately, it does not work or is weak at the level of the communities. It is not clear for the beneficiaries themselves how safe it is to use this system to present or file their demands. So this is a great challenge in our country. Regarding the collaboration between civil society and the government, we don't have a very good relation or well-established relationship. We use this paper, these sheets of paper to be able to identify beneficiaries, and this is only possible through the openness that we have had in the communities. This has been a challenge, but we have been able to show that this monitoring allows us to seek evidence and identify the challenges faced by the government to improve the social protection service in Mozambique.
Thank you, Sérgio. Another question, which is a 2-in-1 question, is that can you say that your community monitoring activities have actually led to greater inclusion or balancing of gender, as well as inclusion of persons with disability? Also, how do different associations and organizations, how do they collaborate with each other in trying to push for these agendas?
One of the aspects that, well, we have advocated for has to do with the inclusion of women. There are many older people that look after their children or their grandchildren, or maybe these children have lost their parents and they look after them, and they want to bring in resources by to home persons that are protected, and in order to fight against gender-based violence, we try to work so that women can better access these basic social subsidies. So we have identified gender issues. We have fought for the exclusion of women, elderly women, because sometimes they suffer violence and because they play a very important role within their families. Regarding the organizations, the platform includes 38 civil society organizations. Among them, we have different organizations that are part of this platform. Persons with disabilities in Mozambique are part of the platforms. The Forum of the Elderly, the Forum of Women, and we always focus on the work that is carried out. It is only a platform because it gathers all civil society organizations at a national level.
Thank you, Sérgio. We are nearing the end of the session today, but before we go, I want to go back to the Zambia presentation, and I want Phuong to address this particular question that was raised on the sustainability of the support to disability certification and other activities, and this is basically, you know, the fact that we all know now that the global political economy is changing every day, and issues of funding are becoming an extremely source of concern for those of us working in social protection. So Phuong, any thoughts on how to sustain disability inclusion in Zambia through some of the interventions presented here?
Yes, thank you, Felix, for the question. I think this is a really relevant question that is not just, well, it's not, as you have put it, it's not just really just Zambia, but it's actually a question globally, where the global environment has changed, and support and funding to inclusive social protection, to push for inclusive social protection, is perhaps a little at risk. So I think this is where there is a need to really go back into considering what's the purpose and objective of many of the developmental work we want to do. I think the principles that has guided us in terms of SDG 2030 agenda are still there. The principle of leaving no one behind is making sure that our work focus on addressing those who are most left behind, those who are most in need. And concretely, what this means is that for many of the development partners, agencies, ILO included, we need to put our attention and focus and ensure that our interventions are inclusive, are able to address the LNOB questions, are able to address the needs of the most vulnerable and those who are being left behind. What it also means in terms for Zambia, in terms of sustainability of disability inclusive actions, will be to look at diversification of sources of funding. Eventually, in the case of Zambia, there is still a heavy reliance on development partners, on donor aid to support many of these inclusive social protection actions. There is definitely a need to move towards a more sustainable source of funding, where the government plays a bigger role in terms of mobilizing resources to ensure that social protection services are being funded, are being supported. This would also involve looking in both contributory and non-contributory sources. This to ensure that there is a balance, there is solidarity, and there is sharing of the joint abundance that has been generated from the country's economic progress. So I think this is really something that we would need to have a much more deeper discussion into, to also look into how development aid, development funding, development support is changing within this global context. Thank you.
Thank you, Finn. And before we close the session, the question and a box has a question for Miss Phuong, and I think it's extremely important that she addresses it before we go, especially that that presentation was quite compelling. So Ms. Phuong, the question is, in order to expand maternity benefit in Vietnam, what are the priorities that Vietnam Women Union should focus on? If you can come back and provide this guidance, extremely important for our learning. Over to you, Ms. Phuong. Please unmute your mic. Unmute your mic. Okay, good. Go ahead.
Yeah, that's very interesting question. And I think I already mentioned this in my slide. In the coming time, Vietnam Women's Union focus on several programs to address the gender specific issues. We still have collaborated with ILO to support us in analyze gender specific data. We also we focus to develop more gender evidence-based options to provide to members of National Assembly who will work with us and have play a vital role to decide policies in making. So I think for our organization where we representing for women, we focus on enhance women capacity, and besides that, we also prepare all the policy options like policy brief that analyze on gender issues to deal with the issue that women are facing, especially for those who are not covered in the social protection. And one of the most important thing that we will do, that we advocate for multi-time maternity benefits. And for those who are still out of coverage. For example, women with disabilities and women ethnic minority. And I think at the institution level, we will work with the policymakers, provide them enough information about the gender data. And at the lower level, we will enhance the capacity of both women's union staff and the women themselves to realize their right and I think within our function that our prioritize.
Thank you. I think that's very clear, well articulated. So creation of more evidence, especially when advocating to parliamentarians, building capacity, and obviously investing in data. Thank you so much for that intervention. We still have a minute to go, so I'll just ask Sérgio to answer the very last question that came in at the last minute. Are there strategies used to ensure capacity building of CSOs at grassroots level to ensure sustainable advocacy? Sérgio, and then we close after.
Yes, within our scope, we try to train the organizations that take part in the community or that act within the community, because they are the gateway towards the platform to access services within the community. So the platform connects technical resources, material resources, financial resources to finance these organizations to use as a gateway. So those are the pathways through which we train the local organizations so those projects can continue in time. We do all our efforts for them to continue.
Thank you, Sérgio. That's clear. Also, let me take this opportunity to let you know that the ILO hosts and coordinates a capacity building initiative called Transform. And it has different tools and modules targeted at government partners working in social protection like ourselves, as well as civil society organizations. So if you are looking for capacity building for civil society organizations to enable them to do more sustainable and informed advocacy, the Transform initiative is another place to go to. I'm going to share the link to Transform page and resources that you can look at, and stay in touch if you want to utilize these resources. Colleagues, as we close, I would like to thank everyone for actively participating in this, and also to say, make sure to answer our survey available when you leave the session, and join us for the next webinar. The recording will also be shared for further reference. Thank you so much and good day.